We're going to talk about Thrall. One, because he's awesome, and I think the majority of people love this character. And two, because this is when he shows up in the Chronicle books. I placed him on a pedestal, that being the thumbnail and title, because he's important. But I do want you to understand that this section of the book contains more than just Thrall lore. We'll also be talking about Kel'Thuzad, King Varian Wryn's wife, and even mention Jaina and Arthas. So, there's a lot of information here. Let's get to it. If this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome. My name is Quaylen, and I'm in the middle of abridging the World of Warcraft Chronicle series. That means I'm taking the lore contained within the books and condensing it even more than it already is. I'm not diving into the deep details, just sticking to what's written in the books. So again, apart from what you read in the title of the video, I'll be sharing other bits of information. In essence, I'm telling the story in order as the books tell it. Currently, we're on Volume 3. But if you want to start from the very beginning, then I suggest clicking the link in the tab up above or in the description down below. That will lead you to a video that contains all 10 episodes covering the lore in Volume 1. But if you're already caught up with the story, then let's continue our journey into the tales of Azeroth. During the Second War, betrayal split the Horde when the warlock Gul'dan broke away to seek forbidden power in the Tomb of Sargeras, taking the Stormreaver and Twilight's Hammer clans with him. This treachery weakened the Horde and led to its defeat, while Gul'dan was ultimately killed and ripped apart by demons inside the tomb. Cho'Gall and some of the Twilight's Hammer clan narrowly survived the slaughter and fled, having abandoned their allegiance to both the Horde and the Legion in favor of their true masters, the Old Gods. Unlike other clans, the Twilight's Hammer practiced shadow magic and worshipped the Void, fueled by a fanatical belief in the hour of Twilight prophecy regarding the end of all things. Following whispers and visions of the ancient Black Empire provided by the Old Gods, Cho'Gall led his followers on a dangerous pilgrimage to the continent of Kalimdor to find and serve an imprisoned entity. Guided by the chaotic will of these ancient beings, the clan eventually established a base in the deserts of Tanaris, near the prison of the old god, C'Thun. However, their progress was halted when the half-orc assassin Garona, who had been enslaved by the clan's leaders years prior, began hunting them from the shadows. Garona's relentless campaign of vengeance resulted in numerous deaths among Cho'Gall's lieutenants, forcing the Twilight's Hammer to flee their new home and find another location to continue their dark mission. The human kingdoms slowly returned to their former prosperity despite the lingering shadows of the Black Dragonflight. King Varian Wryn rose as a fair and visionary leader who oversaw the rebuilding of Stormwind. He and his wife Tiffin welcomed a son whom they named Anduin to honor the legendary hero Anduin Lothar. Across the Great Sea, Grand Admiral Dalen Proudmoore ruled the waves with a stern and iron fist. His daughter, Jaina, sought a different path and traveled to Dalaran to study the arcane arts. She eventually became a gifted apprentice to the legendary Archmage Antonidas within the Kirin Tor. In the northern kingdom of Lordaeron, King Taranis Menethil prepared his son Arthas for the throne. The young prince mastered the sword under Muradin Bronzebeard and learned the holy light from Uther the Lightbringer. Arthas became a brave paladin of the Silver Hand and spent his days defending his people from troll raids. He eventually found himself at the center of royal gossip during a publicized romance with Jaina Proudmoore. The two young leaders ultimately chose their duties over their hearts and parted ways to pursue separate ambitions. Despite the physical distance, they never truly let go of the deep feelings they held for one another. The Lich King rapidly increased his power in the frozen wastes of Northrend by building a terrifying army of the dead. Most of the local inhabitants fell easily to the plague of undeath and swelled his ranks in staggering numbers. This expansion eventually triggered a brutal conflict with the Nerubians, who ruled the subterranean kingdom of Azul Nerub. The insectoid warriors were led by the fierce warlord Anub Arak, and proved to be immune to the Lich King's telepathic corruption. After years of a grueling war of attrition, the Lich King finally crushed their resistance and raised Anub Arak as a powerful undead slave. The Lich King was so impressed by their tenacity that he adopted Nerubian architecture for his own floating necropoli, or necropoli, however you want to pronounce it. He began searching the wider world for other powerful minds to corrupt. He hoped to recruit strong allies who could eventually help him break free from the Burning Legion's control. His dark consciousness reached across the Great Sea to find those who were tempted by the forbidden power he offered. Several individuals eventually answered his call and prepared to serve his dark will. Kel'Thuzad was once a respected scholar and a powerful member of the ruling council in Dalaran. His curiosity eventually led him into the forbidden study of necromancy and the manipulation of death. The Curator viewed his dark experiments as a violation of their ancient laws and moved to exile him. Kel'Thuzad grew bitter and believed the mages were too closed-minded to understand the true potential of this new power. When the Lich King reached out across the world, Kel'Thuzad eagerly answered the call for forbidden knowledge. He traveled to the frozen wastes of Northrend and witnessed the terrifying might of the undead army firsthand. Though he briefly considered fleeing the horror he saw, including what was inside of the ziggurat called Naxxramas, the Lich King forced him into eternal service, and was sent back to the kingdom of Lordaeron to recruit a secret army of loyal followers. Kel'Thuzad founded the Cult of the Damned by promising eternal life to the poor and immortality to the rich. He established a dark academy in the catacombs of Scholomance to train his most devoted necromancers. These sorcerers conducted gruesome experiments to raise the dead and create massive constructs called abominations. Kel'Thuzad eventually perfected a subtle strain of the Plague of Undeath to infect the local food supplies. He planned to distribute the tainted grain throughout the northern farmlands to maximize the number of victims. Now we get to talk about someone that many of you have been waiting to hear about, Thrall. South of Scholomance, the Alliance of Lordaeron maintained a vast network of internment camps for the captive orcs. Control of these prisons fell to Aedelas Blackmore, who was a veteran of the Second War, with a tarnished family legacy. Blackmore felt insulted by his position and secretly plotted to use the prisoners to overthrow the Alliance leadership. His primary weapon in this scheme was an orc named Thrall, whom he had discovered as an abandoned infant years earlier. Blackmore raised the young orc to be a gladiator, while teaching him the complexities of human strategy and philosophy. Despite the education, Thrall was subjected to brutal arena combat to satisfy his master's greed and love for gambling. The young orc found a hidden ally in Taretha Foxton, who eventually risked everything to help him escape his life of slavery. Once free, Thrall ventured into the wilderness and discovered his true heritage as a member of the Frostwolf clan. He realized he had been groomed as a tool of conquest and vowed to rediscover the lost identity of his people. Before we continue, I'd like to mention that if you're enjoying this content, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you feel inclined to support the work that I'm doing, you can check out my membership options here on YouTube or on Patreon. I'm really grateful for all of those who have supported this massive project that I've been working on for quite some time now, and I do offer early access to all those people who have signed up. So if you're interested, check out the links down below, and let's get back to the story. Thrall studied the honorable ways of his people under the guidance of the elderly shaman Drekthar. The young orc rekindled the lost connection to the elements and embraced his shamanic heritage. He also learned the art of war and leadership from Orgrim Doomhammer, who had been a close friend of his parents. Thrall's resilience and vision for a free Orcish nation reignited the hope of the weary former Warchief. Orgrim made Thrall his second in command, and they began a campaign with Gromosh Hellscream to liberate the internment camps. As the camps fell, the lethargy of the captive orcs was replaced by a new sense of purpose and strength. Orgrim eventually perished in battle, and named Thrall the new Warchief of the Horde with his dying breath. Thrall led his people to Durnhold Keep, where he witnessed the brutal execution of his friend, Taretha Foxton. The enraged Horde stormed the fortress, and Thrall personally executed the cruel master, Aedelus Blackmore. With the internment system dismantled, the new Warchief led the Horde across the eastern kingdoms to find a permanent home. Lady Katrana Prestor exploited the escape of the orcs to sow deep discord and resentment among the various nations of the Alliance by speaking passionately to every noble she could reach. The High Elves of Quel'Thalas were the first nation to abandon the pact, as they believed the high cost of the internment camps were a sign of Lordaeron's growing incompetence. King Gen Greymane retreated behind the massive Greymane Wall to isolate his people and ensure their total self-sufficiency while formally cutting off all military ties. While several core leaders reaffirmed their commitment to unity, Prestor shifted her dark focus toward inciting internal riots within the city of Stormwind by manipulating the Stonemasons Guild. She encouraged both the nobility and the workers to never compromise, until a heated dispute over payment escalated into a violent and uncontrollable uprising. The resulting chaos led to the tragic death of Queen Tiffin Wrynn and caused the immediate exile of the disillusioned laborers into the rural areas of Westfall. These workers eventually formed the Defias Brotherhood under Edwin Van Cleef to wage a long and bitter rebellion against the crown of Stormwind. Amidst these rising political tensions, the Paladin Tyrion Fordring chose a path of mercy by defending an elderly orc named Ep.3 from a human hunting party. Ep.3 would go on to join Thrall in the new Horde. This act of perceived treason cost Tyrion his position in the Silver Hand, but reaffirmed his faith as the Holy Light did not abandon his soul. The Alliance was weakened by internal strife, with Stormwind facing conflict and trust breaking down between humans and High Elves. Seizing on this vulnerability, Kil'jaeden urged the Lich King to unleash the Plague of Undeath upon Lordaeron. The Lich King's servants, led by Kel'Thuzad and the Cult of the Damned, had quietly spread their influence across Lordaeron's breadbasket, the Eastweld. Their most critical foothold was Anderhal, the region's main grain distribution hub. Kel'Thuzad's necromancers secretly tainted Anderhal's granaries with the plague. The corruption was invisible to the eye and would only activate once the grain was consumed, leaving citizens completely unaware of the danger. Infected grain traveled along normal trade routes, and people across the Eastweld began falling ill. What started as fatigue and mild fevers in the young and old quickly spread to entire families and villages, with none of the victims knowing the dark source of their suffering. But there was one person who knew what the demons were planning. The spirit of the long-dead mage Medivh watched the plague spread and desperately wanted to warn the world of the coming Legion invasion. Unable to reach the people of Lordaeron, he turned to the only person he could contact, his mother, Aegwynn. Aegwynn, one of the greatest guardians of Tirisfal, lived alone on Kalimdor's eastern shores, carrying the weight of an extraordinary and tragic past largely unknown to the world around her. Long ago, Aegwynn had battled and seemingly defeated an avatar sent by Sargeras. What she did not know was that just before falling, the avatar transferred a portion of Sargeras' spirit directly into her. When Egwene later passed her guardian powers to her son Medivh, she unknowingly passed along Sargeras' spirit as well. The Legion's ruler slowly bent Medivh to his will, ultimately using him to open the Dark Portal and unleash the Orcish Horde upon Azeroth. Though Medivh was eventually slain and the threat neutralized, Egwene found no peace. She held herself responsible for the Horde's invasion, the devastation of 2 wars, and her son's stolen potential as a force for good. During this dark period, Egwene had a dream in which Medivh appeared and pleaded for her to bring him back to Azeroth. Despite initial suspicion, she sensed his soul was free of Sargeras' corruption and resolved to act. Egwene spent months exhausting her remaining magic and searching for artifacts to aid her. The obsessive quest to summon her son gave her renewed purpose and made her feel like herself again for the first time in years. Her efforts finally succeeded. Medivh appeared as a ghostly figure in a raven-feathered robe, and one look confirmed what she had hoped. He was free of Sargeras' influence. The reunion was somber, but both mother and son acknowledged they had been victims of the same evil. Medivh revealed what his wandering spirit had witnessed: the Lich King, the Plague of Undeath, and the Legion's deeper scheme. The demons planned to use a second Well of Eternity atop Mount Hyjal, protected by the World-3 Nordrassil, to create a portal and bring Sargeras and his full armies into Azeroth. Rather than rely on Guardian power alone to stop the Legion, Medivh believed the new Age of Guardians was over. He vowed to travel the world and unite its kingdoms, warning them of what was coming so they could protect Azeroth themselves. Egwene wished to join him, but the summoning spell had pushed her body to the edge of death, rapidly aging and weakening her. It would take years to recover, leaving Medivh to face his mission alone as the Plague of Undeath continued to spread across Lordaeron.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the work that I'm doing, please check out my YouTube, Patreon, or Twitch memberships. And a big shout out to all the names on the screen here. You mean so much to me. Thank you so much for your help. And with that, I'll see you guys next time on the Tales of Azeroth.